Hello and welcome to the Crimson Misery Podcast, episode 37. My name is Will Rainbolt. I hope you all are doing well, uh, as well as you can be anyway. Especially after the State of the Union, if you're on the left, it's not good. The vibes are not very good, but yeah, it is March 5th, 2025. If you all are listening on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts, consider rating the show 5 stars. If you are listening on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment down below. I mean, what else do I really have to say about Donald Trump and already just gutting different federal agencies, especially with the FAA, and also his new crypto pump and dump ordeal following in the footsteps of the Argentinian president Javier Milei. And also, basically, it was always known that Elon Musk was going to be part of this government, and basically, Trump admitting that he is pretty much the head of Doge at this point is not obviously a surprise to anyone who follows politics, but for him to champion around a white supremacist apartheid billionaire who is increasingly becoming unhinged is very it is very um it feels helpless. It really feels helpless. And the fact this is happening, basically installing a fascist type government, as we anyone who follows politics is pretty much well aware of at this point, that this is where it is going with a second Trump presidency. Now, I say that, and I obviously want to point out that the Democratic response to Trump, aside from Al Green, which is pretty much the only Democrat this night, aside from, I mean, I think AOC has said some things on Instagram Live, and Bernie Sanders put out a decent statement. Um, but Al Green had to be ejected from the address, but it was it was very powerful. Basically saying you have no mandate to cut Medicaid. He basically had the only guts in this party, aside from those who put on like pink hats, as you would as you would have seen in like the women's marches of 2016 and 2017. Which, I mean, I'm not going to be against that necessarily, but you have to do more than that, man. And the God, the response, the Democratic response, it wasn't as cringeworthy in the presentation of it as I believe it was the 2018 State of the Union, where Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi were just staring at the camera menacingly. Um, but Alyssa Slotkin was the one who provided the Democratic response to it. And the main thing people are taking away from this, and as an example of why we are cooked, why this country is cooked, why the Democratic Party as a quote unquote opposition party is cooked, is by praising George Bush and Ronald Reagan, saying, it's basically to the extent of, "Oh, I'm a Cold War kid. I was glad Ronald Reagan led in the era instead of Donald Trump." And this is why the Democrats are useless, right? This is why the Democratic Party is terrible, flat out disgusting, all right, as an opposition party. Basically, just diet Republicans. There is no left party. There isn't even a liberal party in this country, the way this is going. How the Democrats, including Hakeem Jeffries and Richie Torres, are going to be part of this new um, crypto thing where I forget exactly what it is, but they're they're basically bowing down to Trump's new crypto pump and dump, where they're going to try at the very least to I don't even have the words at this point because it's just all so stupid. The Congressional Crypto Caucus, uh, why? This is what's important to you all. Now, granted, Hakeem Jeffries is useless, and Richie Torres is basically a member of the Israeli Knesset at this point. He is one of the most pro-Israel people, not just on the Democratic side, but as a whole, right? And you're not going to see much resistance to that through the Democratic Party, not after the Biden administration's complacency and the genocide that Israel put out. You had Trump, obviously, um, not only shaking the hand of President Putin and getting into that tense exchange with Volodymyr Zelensky, um, and the whole MAGA side essentially saying this is, what I don't want my taxes to go toward Ukraine. Meanwhile, they are notably silent on Israel, notably silent, right? And you saw Trump mention Israel, nothing of Gaza in his State of the Union. Not that I'm really surprised about that, but you're going to see no resistance to that. You're not going to see the resistance they were peddling. Um, Not that you would have seen any resistance anyway, but you had people, even still, a lot of liberals eating up like, oh yeah, um, George Bush and Ronald Reagan would have leaders with moral clarity, as one John Hudson put it. What do you say to that? What do you say to people like that who are just diet Republicans? They are basically what Republicans mostly in the 2000s, right? There is no left party, and the Democrats are not the opposition party, at least not an effective one, because this is absolutely disgusting. Not only was the State of the Union, at least the parts that I have seen, were just more the usual of what I expected Trump. I sat through four fucking State of the Unions for Donald Trump. Um, so I know pretty much what to expect. The championing of America is entering a golden age that we will never see again. We will never see you will never see again. We have never seen before. And God, and again, regurgitating his assassination attempt again. I was expecting him to kiss another fire helmet of the firefighter who got assassinated or got killed in the attempt. Um, but yeah, someone put it this way, where about the Democratic Party and the people who were like sitting with pink hats and dressed in pink. Imagine in like the 1930s when Hitler was first elected chancellor of Germany. Imagine if like the left party in Germany started wearing like purple hats as a protesting effort. Like, and if Trump is truly a fascist to you and you're a Democratic messenger, why is this the route you go? And there is no effectiveness. There is no hope for the Democratic Party. And there's really no hope for America. I think this is truly the sign of a dying empire. I really do. If this system, this capitalist system that we have in this in this current day and age, that we are seeing not just with climate change, not just with the genocide in Gaza and all of the war torn areas, especially in Sudan and especially um, God, and especially with cryptocurrency, especially in a lot of Latin American countries, making people go bankrupt, putting people in bankruptcy, and also not being good for the environment. Anyways, really does seem this dying empire's last grasp for true power. I truly feel what this is in this second Trump administration. It is as unhinged as you were to expect it to be, and there is no. It really does feel like there's nothing we can do about it. I'm not one who wants people to. This is the thing about being on the left and being someone who wants people to have healthcare and have the material conditions to live a good life, to be sure that you are, in fact, well well-being and well-to-do in life by providing you the necessary tools to make your life as good as it can be, whether that be with healthcare, whether that be with social security, whether that is with Medicaid, whether that is not having ambulances cost a fortune, having hospital visits, having treatments for cancer, having proper cancer research and that's exactly what Republicans are cutting, despite Donald Trump having a kid who had cancer, prop using him as a prop essentially. Um, you think about that, and you think about what this country does not allow for its citizens. Now, granted, it is a better place than a lot of other countries are, but that's not really saying much for the first world. If you look at it as a whole, America is not really a first world country, you know? And that doesn't have to do with who's president really, and well, I mean, it kind of does, but at least in terms of the major parties and the system that America exists within itself of the free market, it is really just a ploy to make the rich richer, to get the robber barons and the middlemen for health insurance companies. That's who's getting the money. It isn't because of immigrants or black people or trans people, right? These aren't people who are stealing your resources away. It's the greedy lobbyists, the greedy middlemen, the greedy robber barons, the billionaires like Elon Musk who are in charge of this country now. It's like, and again um with the Biden administration, and you can even put the Obama administration in this category too. Cracks around the edges. You had good things that came out of both, and yet it was never enough. It was never enough because people were still struggling. And especially with the Biden administration, a very unpopular incumbency, and your messaging is that you're not going to break that much with them, especially people who are upset about the genocide in Gaza from Israel. I mean, it's astounding to me. It really is astounding. And I know this is a college basketball podcast, but people, seriously, this is I'm still speechless about just how much it continues to get worse. We are cooked. This country is cooked. And we are barely, not even 2 months into this administration, and it's getting so much worse. There will not be, there is no hope if this is the way it's going that this empire can survive this. There is no possible way. Anyway, I mean, again, this is incredibly important, and it's why I want to keep bringing this up because I do feel this is very important for not just this current day and age, but just because people need to realize who the true enemy is, right? Anyway, it's very upsetting, and I wish I went into this podcast with a bit of a better a better mindset, a better headspace. I know part of it I didn't really make sense, but it's just I can't I can't deal with this, man. I really can't with how screwed we are. So, and again, I'll leave it at this. If you truly think the response from the Democratic Party should be, yeah, Ronald Reagan and George Bush, they had class, is an effective response to the Trump administration, especially in the State of the Union, you deserve to be put in a mental asylum. On Monday, yeah. Anyway, on Monday, let's move on to college basketball. Uh, sorry, I'm just still like I know these transitions aren't really that great, but at the same time, I just needed to get that off my chest because man, this is all doom. This is all doom. But at least I have college basketball to distract myself with, and I'm still pissed off at the Indiana result. Not why don't I start with the Indiana result tonight? Because it is still bubble talk, and I'll get into a lot of the bubble results that happened in these last couple days. Um, this game against Oregon, I was expecting to lose, and they did. But the way they lost it was really aggravating to me because, again, especially in these last 2 weeks, going 3-1, I think gets you into the tournament if you're Indiana. They're on the last four buys currently. They are in for most major bracketologists right now. I don't think this Oregon loss really changes anything in with regards to their standing. I think if you beat Ohio State, you're in. But this is a game where I believe it was the last 15 minutes of this game, Indiana got or in Oregon rather got called for two fouls. Two in the last like 15 minutes. And I don't think that's hyperbole. I I mean in this entire game, let me go look at the overall stats in this one because it was something that I've almost never seen before. So 12 fouls in total were called on Oregon. Oregon, God, Oregon got 21 free throws compared to just 7 for Indiana. Oregon won by 9 points in this game. Indiana was leading late until Jackson Shelstad hit a 35-footer to put them in front, which is if you're an Indiana basketball fan, you knew exactly that shot. You knew that shot was going in. I mean, there was no shot it was not going down. Um, it was a physical game by Oregon, and they got called for like no fouls in the second half. It was truly insane. It was I don't even I don't even know like the words for this. It's not as stunning as the as the State of the Union, but like come on. Two fouls. There was a foul on let's see. There was a foul on Jadrian Tracy at the 4:39 mark, and then at the 9:48 mark there was a foul on Kwame Evans. Aside from that, in the final Um, yeah, in the final 15 minutes of this basketball game, those were the only two fouls called on Oregon. And it wasn't like Oregon wasn't playing soft defense or anything. They were being very aggressive and got called for two fouls. They were getting the refs were getting roasted on Twitter. Um, and again, Indiana had a pretty good shot to have this game. They were up by one with less than 2 minutes to go. And yeah, again, Shellstat hit that shot, and then Indiana pretty much folded. Did not score. Indiana didn't score a point in the final 2 minutes, or 1 minute 58 seconds, I should say. Um, but again, it's the way they lost this game that was more infuriating than the others that they've lost. Because before that, even if the refs weren't great, I did not really have a reason to rag on them because Indiana was playing so badly. This one was different in the fact that Indiana played pretty well on the road against a pretty solid Oregon team and had the game basically taken away from them in that way. I mean, this is a game that truly was ref ball in its in any sense of the word, right? So, anywho, um, let's move on. Go back a little bit to Monday. Duke blew out Wake Forest 93-60. Wake Forest, I mean, they are a bit out of the tournament right now. I think they needed to win this one in order to have a shot as even as an at-large. They have no shot now as an at-large. Duke pretty much made sure of it, winning by 33. Cooper Flag had 28 points. Duke is a team. that I think, if healthy, have the best shot to win it all this year. Especially with the Auburn result, and especially Auburn losing, I think Duke will be the number one team, uh, at least in the AP poll. Um, it depends on what happens, obviously, with Duke, North Carolina, and Auburn, Alabama. I think that will obviously play a big factor. But right now, Duke is probably like midweek rankings. Duke number one right now. Um, they're just so talented at. They're so tall. They're so talented. Cooper Flag is a baller. Tyrese Proctor, Conkinipple, Sion James, Isaiah Evans, just a loaded roster. This is even without Malik Brown. I mean that is insane. I don't have too much more to say about it, but yeah, Duke 18-1 now. I believe they have clinched a share of the regular season title in the ACC at this point. So, congratulations to Duke for that one. Houston beats Kansas 65 to 59, so it's kind of what we were all expecting. Kansas did play this game a lot better than a lot of people thought they were going to be playing this game because they have not been playing well. They even in this game they still made a ton of mistakes. They turned it over 20 times in this game compared to just 6 for Houston. Um, Kansas even got more free throw attempts than Houston in this one. And this was even without I mean gosh, because LJ Cryer was in foul trouble for this game, and they were really. I mean, it was looking like Kansas might pull it off, but then Houston just went on a run. Um, Malik Wilson hit some big shots. LJ Cryer, when he was on the court, was very effective, especially in the first half. Jawan Roberts, while he didn't have a great shooting game, his field goals were very timely. And Houston's length, it bothers a lot of teams, even though they are not the tallest team, especially against KJ Adams and Hunter Dickinson, who had both pretty good games. They for back to back games, those two have had decent showings, and yet they lost both games against Texas Tech and Houston, which tells me that this Kansas team is not very good. They're not very good. I've been saying this for a while. This Kansas team is worse than last year's team, and that team was also a disappointment. Both both teams were ranked preseason number one. Anyway, um, not much more to say about this one. Those were the only two ranked or games featuring ranked teams. We do have the Atlantic Sun tournament happening in this current moment. North Alabama at 14-4 defeated Austin P 90 to 64. Jakari Lane had 31 points in that one. So North Alabama, taking a look at the standings for the Atlantic Sun. Um, North Alabama, I believe, was the 2 seed. Lipscomb, I believe, is the top seed in this tournament. Florida Gulf Coast, I believe, was the 3. Yeah, they were the 3 seed, and they got knocked out by 71 to 65. So that was a pretty big surprise. Um, and then yeah, Lipscomb defeated Central Arkansas 84 to 66. So both Lipscomb and North Alabama are still in the Sun tournament. Well, at least to this point, because on Tuesday we had we did we did have the Atlantic Sun, right? I'm not I'm not being stupid, am I? No, we didn't. Okay, so those games are happening, I believe, tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. Um, Let me look because now I'm actually not even sure at this point. Um, what the hell? Where are they? What? My God. When is the next game for Lipscomb? My mind is blown right now. What the hell? Oh yeah, okay, so it is tomorrow. Or it's Thursday. Okay. I would have sworn because usually tournaments happen on back to back to back nights. or days, and it wasn't the case this time. Okay, I got completely fooled. Okay, well, all right then. Yeah, so that is still that will be happening on Thursday, tomorrow, which is the 6th. Um, still a lot of action. Uh, it is happening on my God, yes, yes, it is 8 o'clock tomorrow. Why is this so weird? This is so weirdly formatted. Um, I'm so sorry that I genuinely thought it was on tonight or Tuesday. Okay, well, I was wrong. I was wrong. Um, yeah, McNeese State also, I think they wrapped up the regular season. They beat Stephen F. Austin. Yeah, so they are now 25 and 6, 19 and 1 in the Southland. I believe that regular season is finished for the Southland Conference, at least for the most part, I want to say. So, North Texas also beat Wichita State 68 to 66. I'm telling you, I think if North Texas does end up maybe upsetting Memphis in the AAC, they have a decent enough defense to where I think they might be able to play pretty well. Now, do I think North Texas will beat Memphis? I doubt it, but it could happen. So make sure to keep your eyes on that for the American Championship. So, anywho, with that, let's move on to Tuesday, where Auburn goes down on the road to Texas A&M 83 to 72. Oh man. I mean this is a game where look, Auburn looked pretty invincible even against Kentucky on the road, and in this one it really they Auburn looked pretty vulnerable. There are games where they have looked vulnerable, but man, Janai Broom hasn't been playing very well as of late. He has been in a bit of a slump. I think a lot of teams are very conscious of Janai Broom and they're going to make other people beat them. Miles Kelly did not have a very good shooting game at 0 for 4 from 3, had 12 points. Todd Pettiford started in this one, hit 6 threes, had 19 points. Also had 3 turnovers in this one. Same with Chad Baker Mazara, who also had 15. Not a ton of bench scoring for Auburn in this one. So very, very interesting that they were. I will say Auburn was without Denver Jones in this game, but even still, that is very it's very interesting for uh for Auburn to lose this game because I've thought of any game they played, I would have expected the Kentucky game they would lose. Not this one because Texas A&M has been struggling really badly. Losers of 4 in a row, and yet they beat Auburn, the one of the best teams in the country, if not the best team in the country, along with Duke. Um, yeah, but even still, with this loss, Auburn, Duke, and Houston are the 3 locks for number 1 seeds right now. It is that fourth one is still up in the air, and I can see 4 teams maybe having a shot at that. Florida is one of them, Alabama, Tennessee, Michigan State does have an outside shot, but right now I think their ceiling is a 2. Even still, Auburn still really good, but Texas A&M finally got some good shooting performances in this one. They even though I mean they hit 9 3-pointers, which was the same as Auburn. Um, they went 18 of 25 from the free throw line and really bothered Auburn, which is something that does not happen very much. It's usually the other way around. So Wade Taylor and Jerick Phillips, and who had 19 points in this one. Anderson Garcia had 11. So and defensively, they still made Auburn, despite Miles Kelly still hitting 10 free throws. They were still able to get pressure on Auburn, make them uncomfortable. They made Janai Broom uncomfortable, and that's not easy to do. They even still made Miles Kelly 1 for 8 from the floor after going off for 30 points against Kentucky. This defense, when it's right for Texas A&M, can and will disrupt you. But the thing is, we've seen often that that's very inconsistent. So I'm not quite sure what to make of A&M at this point. That is still there's still a lot to be decided, right? So we'll see if A&M can continue this momentum. Don't have a ton to say about Purdue dropping 100 on Rutgers, although that is very impressive. They've won two in a row now. Rutgers, the season cannot end enough. Cannot end soon enough because they have basically clinched a losing record. I think they have clinched a losing record in the regular season. The best they can finish now is 15 and 16, and that is with two potential top 10 NBA draft picks. I cannot stress this enough. Rutgers, you have two solidified NBA players on this roster, and you have a sub 500 record. That is bad. That is really bad. Yeah, even though Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey both did not have very good games in this one, combined for just 25 points of the 71 Rutgers had, clearly was not enough because Purdue absolutely lit the gym on fire. Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer both hit 7 3-pointers in this one. Jakari Harris and Miles Colvin also, I think they had like 20 combined points off the bench. And yeah, when you're hitting that many 3-pointers, they hit 18 uh, of 36, so 50% overall. They looked like they were in a groove. Rutgers' defense is just so much worse than it was in previous years. They're down to 135th in defensive efficiency in KenPom, and it really shows because, man, whatever Steve Peichel's philosophy was in those first several years as the head coach of Rutgers completely went out the window. Trying to get Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, two NBA draft picks, trying to make the system more beneficial to them, it completely shredded this team. And I like watching them play most of the time. They are very, very talented. But the rest of the team is not very good. Even if they had, let's say, the years where Rutgers was making first fours and that were actually somewhat decent with Cliff Amori. And I hate saying this name because he was such a smug asshole, but Paul Mulcahy or um, Caleb McConnell, Geo Baker, Ron Harper. If this Rutgers team had that level of talent, Oscar Palmquist as well. I forgot he existed for a second. Um, this would be a pretty good Rutgers team, genuinely. And instead, they are a disaster. Being ranked preseason and not even finishing 500 is awful. So that's really all I have to say about Rutgers. What a disappointment. Wouldn't be surprising if this might be the end of the Steve Peichel era. Whether he leaves, I don't know if they'd fire him, but at the same time, it's pretty shaky right now. So I'll be curious to see what ends up happening there. Memphis defeated UTSA 75 to 70. So Memphis, congratulations, you are the winners of the American Athletic Conference. And again, Dane Danger has been playing so well as of late. 19 points, 8 rebounds. Again, for Illinois, it's kind of a maybe you needed a guy like Dane Danger on your team. Just saying. Um, Yeah, not a ton to say about that one, but Memphis, even still, um, they're going to be probably favored to win the AAC tournament. We'll see. I think North Texas or UAB could maybe pull off an upset, but again, I think Memphis, even still, is an NCAA tournament team that is not going to be a fun team to face. Whoever they whoever they end up getting seated with. So. Kentucky blew out LSU, especially after that Auburn game. I'm not really surprised. Otega away had 24 points, 8 rebounds. He looked very good in this one. He looked very much more comfortable. I know it's LSU, one of the worst SEC teams, but even still, Otega Owe is a guy that can put up some damage in the NCAA tournament. Because even in the last years of John Calipari, there really wasn't a guy that was like Otega Owe. They didn't have that like queen on a chessboard. And Otega Owe is one of those guys for Kentucky. I mean, they had obviously under Calipari, you had guys like Trey Lyles and even Terrence Jones and Malik Monk in those Kentucky years where they could basically do almost anything on the court and they would be incredibly effective as like your Swiss Army knife. And Otega Owe is that guy for this year's Kentucky team. So speaking of well, I'll get to the Arkansas game in a second. Texas beat Mississippi State in overtime at Mississippi State, 87-82. So I pretty much wrote this Texas team off after they lost at home convincingly to Georgia. And I'll get to Georgia in a second, but this definitely helps them. Texas right now is among the first four out. Um, but this was a big win for them. They got a win at Mississippi State, who I just simply don't know what to expect from them at this point. I think Mississippi State can play pretty well in a lot of games, and then at the same time, I just don't I just don't know. Like Josh Hubbard is really talented. RJ Melendez is really talented. Cam Matthews is really talented. This team has talent, but they are very I, I really hesitate picking this Mississippi State team to go far just because they're incredibly inconsistent. And being in again, as I said, for a team like Vanderbilt and a team like Ole Miss, being inconsistent in the SEC still means you're getting really good wins. I mean, they have two wins over Ole Miss. Speaking of them, they have the win over Texas A&M, and yet I'm like, look at the rest of their ACC schedule, and it's or ACC schedule, SEC schedule. I mean, they do have a win against Vanderbilt, granted, and at Georgia. And aside from that, it's just like not as impressive to me. So while they have had some really good wins, I am still very hesitant to. And they have a win over Memphis. They have had a pretty convincing win over Memphis as well. So yeah, I'm just not entirely sure about this Mississippi State team. That being said, Tremont Mark and Trey Johnson had another really good effort in this one. Tremont Mark had 24 points, Trey Johnson had 23. So at the very least, those two are still really good. It's basically going to come down to their performance in the SEC tournament, whether they make it or not. Right now, I still don't think they're in, but they're a little bit closer now. Um, and then Georgia also on the bubble along the last four buys now, which is pretty spectacular for them considering they were, I believe, part of the next four out just a couple of weeks ago. But they did get a win against South Carolina, which isn't great by any means, but it's not a bad loss on your resume. And South Carolina would have been a bad loss. So for Georgia, they got that win, and by golly, they needed it. Um, so Green Bay has officially been eliminated from the NCAA tournament. Doug Gottlieb, at least not this year, he will not be an NCAA tournament coach. I know that's so sad. That's so sad. Um, Lost to Oakland 96-72. Wah, I'm so unhappy. I'm so sad. Oh, if this is the only year we get of Doug Gottlieb content, then by golly, it was great. But boy, do I want this ride to continue because I want to continue to just mock this motherfucker to the ground. Seriously. Oh, how this has been a disaster. I don't have much else to say about it because man, it's just like again, I've said this before on this podcast where he is essentially like it's essentially The South Park episode where Cartman laughs at that very short person at like sensitivity training. It's basically that, but instead of that and with Cartman laughing at him, it's me laughing at Doug Gottlieb for being just an insufferable douche. So anyway, for better teams, you have Lafayette defeating Holy Cross 69-68 in the first round of the Patriot League championship. Loyola Maryland also beat Lehigh 77-73. So I believe I don't know the brackets or where they were placed all that well, but um, at least Lafayette and Loyola Maryland are still kicking, so they will be advancing. Same with Northern Kentucky in the Horizon League, 99-75 against Detroit Mercy. Detroit Mercy also was one of the losses to Green Bay, so who really knows if they were ever gonna do anything? Probably not, since they were 8-24. Um, North Carolina they blew out Virginia Tech 91-59 on the road. Again, North Carolina, if they make in order to make the tournament, I know they've been playing better, but it's the ACC, and if you are going to make the NCAA tournament, you have to beat Duke on your home floor. You beat Duke, you're in. If they don't, they at least need to win. They at least need to win like two games in the ACC and maybe even more. They may need to win the ACC tournament in order to get in if they don't beat Duke. If they do beat Duke, they have a lot of wiggle room. So, anyway, VCU defeated Duquesne 71-62. So, VCU has clinched a share of the Atlantic 10 regular season title. Congratulations to them. Creighton defeated Seton Hall. Not surprising at all. Ryan Kalkbrenner had 20 points in this one. Creighton is one of those teams that is very interesting because they have such a they almost never foul. Unlike Oregon, who like actually fouled, like Creighton barely ever fouls, and they do give up quite a bit in the paint. Well, not in the paint really, but just like inside the arc. Um, and sometimes teams can have pretty good shooting nights from three against them. But in terms of that's what I meant. In the paint, they really don't give up anything because Ryan Kalkbrenner is so tall and he is able to deflect a lot and really poses that intimidation factor for a lot of teams. And come tournament time, Creighton's going to be a very interesting pick depending on who they get matched up with because I can see them winning a game in the NCAA tournament. I really can. So, but with that being said, also Wright State defeated IU Indy 98-85 in the first round of the Horizon League tournament. In the Sun Belt, you had Louisiana in the first round Sun Belt tournament. They defeated Louisiana Monroe 73-69 in overtime. Um, not a ton to say about that one, but I mean, depending on what ends up happening in a lot of the lower majors, I'll get to once like the semifinals and finals happen with those conferences. So, and a couple other games I wanted to mention. New Mexico also clinched at least I believe they no I guess it was the Mountain West regular season title. Um, defeating Nevada 71-67. Donovan Dent, another guy you all should be watching come tournament time, had 33 points. So congratulations to New Mexico. Also, Boise State squarely on the bubble defeated Air Force 80-57. Boise State is currently in the last four in, so they are playing their way into the tournament. Um, that is a big game for them. San Diego State currently losing at UNLV, which would not help them out a lot. San Diego State, despite being in the last four byes, they need to be careful. They really need to be careful. Arizona also is currently beating Arizona State. I don't have it a pretty high scoring game for Arizona standards. They are about ready to put up 100 on them. Um, Caleb Love finally with a good shooting night has hit four threes thus far, has 20 points. So again, I don't trust Arizona. That's a team I just don't trust come tournament time. So it also there's a couple more. Yeah, Villanova also lost to Georgetown. They are pretty much that might be the nail in Villanova's coffin. Not to say they were going to make the tournament anyway, but especially now after losing to Georgetown, they just that's not a loss you can have. And then West Virginia does get a big win against Utah. So West Virginia, I believe, is I guess yeah, they're still off the bubble technically, even though I don't really think they should be off the bubble, but they did get a win here against Utah. Javon Small had 18 points in this one, so a guy that can have a pretty good game come tournament time, really. But I just don't know if I trust this West Virginia team much either. So, anywho, uh, Ohio State gets a win against basically ending Nebraska's hopes at the NCAA tournament, at least for right now, uh, beating Nebraska in double overtime, 116 to 114. This is a game was really eager to talk about because, good Lord, this was a wild game. I mean, Bruce Thornton had 29. Bryce Williams for Nebraska had 43 points in this one, 16 for 29 from the floor. This dude would not miss. And in a game where this was pretty much a play-in game, essentially, Ohio State gets the win. So, I mean, they had yeah, again 29 from Bruce Thornton, 22 from Devin Royal, 22 from Micah Parrish, 20 from John Mobley Jr., 13 from Sean Stewart, 8 from Aaron Bradshaw off the bench. So this was incredible. Um, Incredible display of offense. Basically no no defense. Nebraska, I believe, tied it at like 90 it was up in the 80s. Um, there was in overtime. I know Ohio State was hitting some threes. I believe Thornton hit one. Parrish, I think, hit one. But it just seemed like every time the teams would every time a team would start to pull ahead, the other would like come right back. So again, Nebraska looked like they were going to win it in overtime, and then Ohio State ended up shooting their way back into it. Same with Nebraska in regulation, and then I believe in the second overtime, I think Thornton and Parrish once again, I believe, hit a couple threes to put Ohio State ahead for good. Um, yeah, so great win for Ohio State. I think they push Nebraska out for right now, and that sets up Ohio State, Indiana, senior night. Again, for Indiana, just beat Ohio State and you're in. Just please do so. Um, anyway, that's about all I have to say on the men's side. A little bit of a scuffed episode, especially on the men's side, because I couldn't really tell when conference tournaments were being played, which was kind of weird. But anyway, at least I have a little bit more clarification on that. So anyway, on the women's side, we have a couple of results that I wanted to get into. A couple, I mean, kind of the same way with the with the men's side, in which a lot of the tournaments are still getting started, but you had a couple Mountain West results. Or no, I guess the Mountain West is still going. No, that can't be right. I guess so. I guess the Mountain West regular season ended today. Same with a couple of American games. Okay. Well, kind of the same deal. I mean, you had a little bit of an upset. New Orleans defeated McNeese on the women's side, and then Wright State defeated Youngstown State in the Horizon League. Oakland defeated IU Indy. It's a bad day for IU Indianapolis, 62 to 56. Detroit Mercy did get a win though, 73 to 62. Good for them, I guess. So yeah, those were and then Marshall defeated South Alabama 73 to 59. Um, I mean, not. I think that's yeah. Georgia Southern also beat Southern Miss 70 to 59. So, um, oh no, South. Yeah, no, Southland tournament didn't start. Okay, that was just a regular game. Okay, well, again, this is very kind to my mental health. So please forgive me for any uh scuffed podcasting. So, anyway, Tennessee on Wednesday, a couple of the women's games start to get going, or a couple of the major conferences get going. So Tennessee plays Texas A&M. I believe the Volunteers should win that, even though they did lose to Georgia at home, which was very surprising. Yeah, the SEC tournament starts, the Big 12 tournament starts, the Big 10 starts with Minnesota, Washington. I think Minnesota needs to win this game against Washington. Uh, but we'll see on that one. Rutgers also plays Nebraska, and then Wisconsin plays Iowa. That's right. That could be a pretty good game. I know that game's on Peacock. I'm pretty sure. And then uh, Kansas and Texas Tech play, and then Auburn, Florida for like a basically yeah the first round to face the better SEC teams this year. Which again, Florida and Auburn in on the men's side is a really good game, and the one on the women's side is not. So anyway, hopefully by the time the women's tournament, the tournaments on the women's side get going, there will be a bit more to talk about. I just don't have a ton to say right now about that. But I did want to bring you all some updates there on how the beginning of some of the mid-major tournaments have kicked off. So anyway, hopefully next episode will be a little bit better, and I'll be in a better mood because of Oregon officiating and the State of the Union. Uh, yeah, hopefully next episode will be a little bit better. But until then, thanks again very much. Oh yeah, something else I wanted to mention. So tomorrow's men's games, yeah, Maryland at Michigan should be very interesting. Will Michigan be able to bounce back after they got blown out at home to Illinois? Florida Alabama is going to decide a lot. That might help decide a one seed, or at least narrows it down to a team that is definitely on the outside. So we'll see. Whatever team wins that one is going to be, going to be one step closer. And then Clemson is going to try to stay in the ACC, at least try to get a share of the ACC title as they play Boston College. Texas Tech also in action against Colorado. Oklahoma needs to beat Missouri. Like they need to beat Missouri because they are on the first four out. So again, they need to beat Missouri. So, Wisconsin in action against Minnesota. Marquette, UConn. I think UConn will be able to win that one. Tennessee, Ole Miss. Tennessee needs to keep winning in order to get a one seed. Like they need to beat Ole Miss. If they lose to Ole Miss, they are out of the one seed contention. And then Louisville at home against California. I believe they're at home against California, and I think Stanford for the final game. So they should be able to win out. But yeah, aside from that, don't really have much else to say. I will get back with you all at some point later, probably on Thursday, if not Friday. But until then, thanks again for listening. I know it was a bit of a scuffed episode, um, but hopefully I'll be in a bit of a better mood. Hopefully I will um, be able to realize whenever the tournament games are actually on, because again, I thought the Atlantic Sun tournament happened today, which is again that's on me. So I need to make sure I have my dates set. Um, but anyway, with that said, thanks again so much for listening, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.